Okay, so hoare. So first, what is hoare logic? Should go to the top, right? So there's a little paragraph here. So hoare logic or axiomatic semantics, and yes, hoare is pronounced exactly like whore. That's the perfect pronunciation. That's the name of Tony Hoare, and given that he's my PhD thesis supervisors. I'm a academic grandchild of a whore. So okay, enough puns. So the idea of a whore logic is to verify concrete programs. So we can think of a whore logic as a kind of abstract, verifier, an idealized verifier, just like we had the interpreter at last lecture, and we're going to have the compiler in the next one. And the idea of whore logic is really to reason about concrete programs. You want to verify concrete programs. You want to verify that they maybe that they have some shallow properties, like that they never dereference a null pointer, or that they have a deeper property, like that they do what they're supposed to do. Whore logic can be used for both. Okay, so now I scroll back here. So the heart of hoare logic is the hoare triples, and these are basically judgments again, just like in the operational semantics. But the judgments have this shape here with the curly braces and so on. So you have, this is a Boolean condition, which is a so-called precondition. You have a statement here, and you have a post condition here, typically called Q. And the idea is that, and P and Q may refer to the variables, the program variables that are in S. And the idea is that if P holds, the precondition P holds before executing S, and you run S, and S terminates, doesn't throw an exception or anything, no division by zero. Well, in that case, whenever it terminates, then Q has to hold at that point, right? And then the idea is that we're going to connect these hoare triples together, right? So the post condition of S might become the precondition of T if you have S executed and then semicolon T and so on. So we're going to see that we can combine these triples. And the syntax here suggests that this is a comment in some way, like the curly braces are comments in Pascal. So it's a bit like you have an S here, and then you have a comment telling you what condition holds before, and a comment about how it holds after. Actually, Tony Hoare himself, he writes them like this, and I think he's the only person on the planet who still does that, but he does that. Okay, it was Niklas Wirth, the author of Pascal, who decided to swap them around since these were comments in Pascal. Okay, so there we go. We call this triple a partial correctness statement, because if there is a crash in S or some non-termination, then we know nothing. Then the triple just holds. It's not informative. It doesn't tell us anything. So this is not like the strongest or most useful for a triple. We're going to see later that we can have hoare triples for total correctness as well. But because total correctness builds on partial correctness anyway, we'll start with partial correctness, and it's also easier that way. So let's look at some concrete examples that will definitely help. So here, all of these are valid. All of these are, intuitively correct. We haven't shown what's the semantics of a hoare triple. I mean, beyond this intended meaning here, but all of these should hold, right? If we don't mess up. So if we start in any state, state that satisfies true, and we assign 4 to B, then we should end up in a state where B equals 4. That's okay. Here we start in a state where A equals 2, and we assign 2 times A to B. So afterwards, we're in a state where A equals 2 and B equals 4. That's one of many possible answers. We could also say we're in a state where B equals 4. This is true. We could also say we're in a state where, true is true. which is also true. So there are lots of variations here. Lots of Hoare triples are true, right? If we know that B is at least 5 and we increment it by 1, then at the end we know that B is at least 6. If we start in an impossible state, right? So a state that satisfies false, and we run skip, then we may assume that at the end B equals 100, right? Because this is a bit like false implies B equals 100, and this is always true, right? There's no code in between, so we literally have an implication here. This is in that case what Hoare logic tells us. Sorry, like this, that false implies B equals 100. Okay, whoops, I went too far. And the last one is you start an arbitrary state, and as long as I is different from 100, you increment it by 1. Then you know at the end you'll have I equals 100, right? And right, I mean, there are no guarantees that this will terminate. I mean, you could have maybe I initially is 101, and then you keep on going forever, increment, increment, increment. And we're working with God's integers here for people who believe in God, and unbounded integers for the rest of the population. And so these integers will not warp around, which means you might actually end up in an infinite loop here, until I becomes so big that it's going to fit in your memory of your computer, or the end of the universe comes first, maybe. Right, but if it terminates, then that means this condition must have been false at some point, which means you have I equals 100. So these are all valid Hoare triples. And yeah, I think I will continue. No, wait a second. I will continue after the break, I think, because the Hoare rules are quite something. We'll do a separate video with those. Maybe you want to, get a glass of water or something first.